Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Scott and we'll be joined here in just a second by Mary.
Hi, everyone.
So thanks for joining, Mary. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much. I am so happy to be here today to help Scott present today's webinar. Today, we will be talking about transforming cold basements by using electric radiant heating for below grade spaces. We are going to take a good comprehensive exploration into why this is a very great solution for your next project. So some of the things we're going to go over today is we're going to just talk about basements and naturally cold spaces and why radiant heating solution is such an excellent choice because it's going to give you such an even heat throughout the whole room and give you great improved energy efficiency. We're going to go into some deep dives about moisture management and installation proper techniques and calculation heating requirements, and Scott's going to help us talk about that kind of stuff. We also want to talk a little bit more about the flooring and compatibility and what kind of flooring choices work best in those types of situations. And lastly, we're going to go over some project showcases and tell you some real life stories about some really good successes in below grade basement situations. One of the biggest challenges with basements is the HVAC systems have a bit of time of struggling because these are cold spaces naturally. They're in contact with the earth. They present a chilly, damp feeling all the time. You really do have a lot of heat loss with that cold slab sucking away your heating and reducing your efficiency. Another thing that people will notice about basements is the temperature unevenness, high humidity levels. Um, that all has to do with how comfortable your environment's going to feel. A lot of times in a basement, you will have vents. The forced air vents will be in the ceiling, and they just kind of struggle to push that hot air down to you, and you never really get that warm feeling. Um, we want to make sure that we're preventing mold and moisture growth. Structural damages can happen over time, and radiant heating is a good way to help prevent a little bit of that. And then we want to just talk more about how the system is going to help you feel more comfortable.
Yeah, the heat loss is a reality, and that's why we bring it up. And because of that, like one of the floors that I did, one day we went in the first day we put the insulation on top of the slab. And because then we're going to install the heating over the top of that insulation. So after the first day, we were done. We went upstairs. We came back the next morning, and the room felt, wow, this room feels actually much warmer than it did yesterday. And we hadn't put the floor heat in yet. We had just put the insulation on the slab, and that kept the temperature that was warm in the basement. It kept it from going down into the slab and getting that chill feeling. So it really makes a big difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here you can kind of see from this nice visual depiction there how radiant heating really makes the whole room a cozy, comforting heat. So as where you're doing a forced air heating, the heat comes up through the vent register, it kind of goes back around and cycles down, and you never get that full comfort feeling that you do with the radiant floor heating systems. The energy efficiency and how little it costs to run these is really a great smart way of keeping, with energy efficiency costs, and it's very much a efficient way of heating your home.
So let's say that I love this picture right here, but let's say that we have twins in this space. Okay, we have Jane and Jill, and one is in a room that's got hot air, and the other one is an area that is done with floor heat. Well, if the gal on the left walks out, there's no reason that we heat that room anymore. So what you're doing is the way you save money is you only put the heat in the area where you are, and you turn down the heat that the HVA system usually has one thermostat that controls the temperature
Mhm.
for every single square inch of the house. What you can do is you can turn that down, and then the gal on the right there, just turn it up to something comfortable there. And now that room is comfortable because there's a person there. The
Mhm.
rest of the house doesn't need to be heated up that high, so you can turn the HVAC down. So that's what's so great about this floor heating is you can actually zone it. And if you're only using your basement a couple times a year at Thanksgiving and at Christmas, there's no reason to be heating it if there's no one down there, right? You can save money by putting the floor heat in there and then only turning it on the week of Thanksgiving, then turning it completely off. and then turning it on the week of Christmas and then turning it back off and until somebody else comes to visit. So that way you're saving energy all the way around. So this is electric floor heat is a really smart strategy when it comes to zoning areas, being able to turn down the temperature in the rest of your house and making sure that you're warm in the room that you were in.
Awesome. Here's where we talk a little bit about the average basement remodels and how expensive they can get in today's day and age. We're talking about nearly $23,000 for average basement remodels. When you're putting in radiant heating, it really adds such an extra advantage to your home, really turning out more profit for you when you go to sell your home. As a trade professional, you could be making good margins on adding these extra radiant heating features to the home. It gives you a competitive advantage that other contractors may not be offering. And you're really giving solutions. You're not just remodeling a space that's just going to be as cold as it was before. You're building a nicer solution for the homeowners and creating a really long-lasting relationships with them. Um, so bottom line is here, what we want to really emphasis is that every basement is a big opportunity waiting to happen with the right floor heating solution for you. By joining our webinar today, we're also offering an additional 10% off your next heating project.
Just by being here. That's a
Yeah,
great
thank
deal. And I'd invite anybody to do ROI, return on investment studies for your home. I just saw one a couple weeks ago. It says, if you go and spend $1 zillion on a backyard patio, the ROI is less than 50%. If you do a certain spot in a certain part of the house, the ROA is only 30%. So you can see that a 70 to a 75% ROI on a finished basement really, really can be a great deal when it comes to, especially when you come to sell the house.
Great point, Scott. Thank you. Okay, and this is a little bit of a kind of a cutaway of our product installation overview. Here is like on the my left-hand side here, we have the in-slab installation new construction. In this method, the cables are actually embedded directly into the fresh pour of concrete. And what that does is it creates a big thermal mass, providing consistent, long-lasting heat. Um, it does heat retention. It does require more planning, but it really is a awesome method to do it if you're in the new construction phase of your project. Um, Here we're showing the crushed aggregate base. This is the first layer. That's going to be your big 8 inch layer to 12-inch layer there. We're showing some insulation down next. Then we also show the pour of concrete. And what you're going to notice here is that the heating system itself is zip tied to some rebar wire mesh there. And what we're showing here is you're going to need to block that up on some chair rails so that when they go to pour that concrete, it's going to pour through uh, the wire mesh so that your cables are kind of in the center of that pour. We only want the heating system about 2 to 3 inches deep. So if you're pouring a 6-inch slab, you want us maybe at no more than 3 inches deep.
Yeah, so these are suggestions here. The bottom two layers are going to be addressed by your local building code. They're
Mhm.
going to tell you how much insulation goes there. They're going to tell you how thick your aggregate it needs to be and what it's made of. And that is very, very important, whether you're going to have to do perimeter insulation around your foundation. All that stuff is you have to do per your local building codes. Now, above that, when it comes to the concrete, that's when we start talking about electric codes because a couple things here with this drawing. It's a great drawing, but it really isn't two separate slabs of concrete there. We just did that to illustrate it. It's actually one continuous slab of concrete with 2 to 3 inches above it and 2 to 3 inches below it of that heating cable. You want the heating cable to be propped up on the rebar, not laying at the bottom. The number one thing when I go out and do one of these installations is somebody just attaches it to the rebar and lays a rebar on the gravel and starts pouring concrete. And now all of a sudden, instead of your heating cable being in the middle of your slab, it's at the bottom. And
Mhm.
it's going to take longer to heat, may not get as warm. That's the sort of stuff that you want to look at. What we suggest doing is that you prop this rebar and the wire mesh and the heating cable up and then pour the concrete through it. You're going to need to tell your concrete professional you need sub 3/4 inch aggregate so it can flow through the cables or flow through the mesh. And that way, the mix that they use has smaller rocks and
Mhm.
stuff in it, and those rocks will flow through the holes as opposed to get stuck on the top when it acts like a strain. So you don't want to strain that aggregate, you want it to flow throughout. So that's why we're kind of showing you here it's two, it's split in half, but the slab is actually one. So I don't want anybody to get confused with that. And then you put your flooring on top of that. So the main thing is the one on the left is in-slab, that the one is inside the slab. The other one on the right side is where we're heating on top of the slab and we're keeping away from the slab because we want faster heat up times. We want warmer temperatures, that sort of stuff. So talk to us, Mary, about the over slab installation, which is normally found in a remodel.
Yeah, this one's really probably more common even than the other style most of the time because that's where people are, experiencing their cold basements after they move into their new homes. They want to heat these floors. So when you have the existing concrete slab or addition on your home, this is the way to do it. What we Warmly Yours really stresses and suggests is to do a thermal barrier first over your existing slab to help reflect that heat upward instead of coming downward or being sucked all the way down to your slab. We want that radiant heat coming up and not going down.
Yeah, if you put this cable directly on the slab is going to pull the heat down into the slab instead of releasing it to the room. It's very, very important. We started doing this 20 years ago. Now you're going to start seeing other companies that have kind of jumped on the bandwagon, but this is very, very important to isolate that heating cable because let me tell you why. Mary and I were on the phones all day, every day.
Mhm.
We talk to people all the time. There's nothing more upsetting is when someone we tell them, "Hey, you really want to make sure that you put insulation over your slab." They go, "You know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put the cable on the slab." So what you're literally doing is saying, "I don't want my floor as warm." Because if
Yeah.
you put it directly on the slab, your floor may be lucky to get into the 70s, as opposed to if you isolate it from the slab, you getting into the 80s. So it literally is, do you want your slab to not feel cold or do you want it to feel warm? That is your decision. That's why we make such a big deal about that, Marion. How do you countersell someone who says, I think I'm going to just save money on the insulation because I know you do this every day.
Yeah, your point exactly. Do you just want your floor to chase the chill off the floor, or are you actually looking to try to actually get some warmth and heat into your room? We get asked a lot about primary heating. I think we have another couple slides. We're going to talk more about that, but really using that thermal sheet is going to be the best way to get the most bang for your buck. I mean, it is a little more upfront cost in the budgeting for your project, but what a difference it will make in the long run. It
Yeah.
really will pay for itself over time. So here we go talking about the subfloor preparation. So this is very, very important when you have a basement, especially if you've got an older home, folks. A lot of times those foundations were poured who knows how long ago. They've got cracks, they've got uh, low spots, high spots, all kind of things. So really what you need to make sure first is that you're working from a good surface to start with. Um, Again, we're talking about going over the slab. Um, Always follow your manufacturer flooring recommendations. Moisture barriers are going to prevent the ground moisture from migrating upwards, protecting your flooring and heating system from any water damage. Without it, it may compromise your entire installation. This is
Right. So when you're buying a specific brand of flooring, you're going to ask that manufacturer, what are your requirements for moisture barriers? Because they're going to tell you that. That's not something we tell you about. That's something that the flooring manufacturer is going to specify.
and that really doesn't change even if you're using our thermal underlayment. You're still gonna follow their recommendations for the moisture barrier.
Right. Because the thermal sheet is not a moisture barrier.
Correct. Yes, want to be clear on that. Um, when you're doing the in-slab insulation, this is another critical factor. Um, the critical factor is that rigid foam insulation. Scott mentioned follow your local building codes, but you do need some type of extruded polystyrene or the EPS foam board.
They're going to tell you which kind they
Right.
recommend. They're going to
Exactly.
tell you what the R value is that is required, and they're going to tell you what the thickness is required. That's all going to be the building code telling
Mhm.
you that, because what you're doing is you're constructing, even though it's got heat in it, you're still constructing a slab. You're still constructing a basement, and there are rules for pouring that slab.
Right, right. So definitely follow the proper substrate preparation, and then this will really help you avoid, as it says, 90% of the installation issues. Okay, so some pre-planning things to help you guys get started. WarmlyYours has condensed our knowledge into some really great helpful features for all of you. We do these no obligation smart plans with very detailed technical specifications. It's what you just need to do is send us a simple hand sketch or drawing with some accurate dimensions depicting any permanent fixtures in the room. So, such as if you have a support beam or column in your basement, any built-ins, any islands, any wet bar, stuff like that. You're going to want to notate that on your drawing for us.
Because
Um,
we don't go under them.
Correct. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to go around those types of objects, and it really does have effect on how we lay out your heating system. So please make sure that you are notating those permanent objects. And then our engineers will do a nice CAD drawing to detail the whole map and precision placement of how to lay down the heating matter cable so that your installation crew is not left guessing on how to put this in the room. We
When you're
spell
thinking
out.
about, I'm sorry, Mary, but when you're thinking about this, we get this question a lot, is when you're thinking about putting this heating in, especially when it comes to heat loss calculations, like how do I figure how many square feet I have? Um, you're not, if you're doing a basement that has a bathroom, that has a bar, that has a separate room that's a bedroom, that has a separate room that's a bathroom, you're not going to be just pouring a fresh new slab and putting electric heat under all of it, because you can't go under walls. So you need to make sure here's where the wall is going to be. You need to be inside that bathroom, inside the walls. You need to make sure you're not under the toilet. You're not under the cabinet. You just can't fill the whole room. Say it's 100 square feet. You don't put 100 square feet of heat in there and then start putting things on top of it. You have to show us what's going to be there, how big it is, and the area where it's going to be, so we don't put heat under those permanent fixtures, or it doesn't go under the walls. So it's not you're heating one giant area, 500 square feet. You're heating 60 square feet here. You're heating 80 square feet there. You're heating another square footage over there. And those are all individual zones. So that what I see a lot of people is, well, here's my basement. I want to do a heat loss calculation. Tell me if this will work as primary heat. And now we don't do just this whole basement, right? We
Mhm.
have to do the individual spots.
And that also goes back to what you were saying earlier about zoning it and having different temperature control for the rooms that you're in, occupying versus the rooms that you're maybe not occupying at all times. So definitely
And
think.
that goes, and Mary, you and I talk about this all the time, on our free time, is
Mhm.
when you have a big area and somebody wants to put it on one thermostat. So they want to
Right.
put the thermostat in the hallway, and then they want heat to be in this little tiny bathroom. Well, the problem is the heat in that little tiny bathroom, that room is going to get really hot because the thermostat's out in the area that's colder. So,
Mhm.
and if you put the thermostat in that bathroom, and try to heat the rest of the floor in the rest of the basement. The bathroom will be nice and comfortable, but the rest of the floor in the basement is going to be cold.
Cold.
That's why we always say get a thermostat in each one of these areas, so one area isn't really hot and one area isn't really cold.
Right. Absolutely. You get much better controllability of your floor. You'll be much more happy in the long run. And it's almost the same amount of circuits to run anyway. So it doesn't really, if you plan ahead, you will be much more happy in the long run.
Absolutely.
And also with your quotation that from Warmly Yours, besides your wonderful smart plan, your electrical plans, we give you a full product breakdown so that you can confirm that there's no errors or surprises or waste. Everything is itemized for you very easily for you to read through. Um, we number everything very well so that you can see the technical support number if you need assistance, and everything is well labeled for you.
Exactly. And you're going to get the number of breakers you need. You're going to get the wattage of each product installed. The GFCI control that's required is built into all of our thermostats, so you don't have to worry about that. That gives you that. But what we're going to do with this, not only is just plan how to lay it out, but here's a page to give your electrician to make sure that they go out and buy these breakers. They need to be this size. And then your electrician will figure out the wire sizing. We don't figure out wire sizing because that's done by local code. So that electrician's going to do that for you. But we'll tell you what the product is pulling, how many circuits we've designed, all that stuff will be included.
Excellent. Yep. Very handy. Okay. And here's a picture of the products we were speaking of about the in-slab heating. So as you can see, this is definitely a much more robust heating system. It's diameter wise for the wire itself, cable itself. We do have two options. We have the slab on the cable on the spool, and we have the mat where it's already pre-attached to the netting, which makes it a little bit easier installation for nice rectangular, very large spaces. Very easy to run out a mat style heating system. Cable's going to be your best bet when you've got irregular shapes. So if you've got obstacles to go around, if you're doing this like in around again, islands, oddly shaped rooms, cable on the spool is going to be your best bet over a mat style sometimes. You have a little more flexibility with the cable for spacing. So if we are not going to be putting any floor covering over the heating system versus if we are going to be putting a floor covering over the new concrete, that makes a difference, right, Scott?
Yeah, yeah, because if you're doing polished concrete, that's a lot of people are doing that, and those floors look really, really cool. And you can get those nice and warm by increasing the temperature using the slab heat mat, or if you're going to be using the cable, that's good for that too, because you don't have to work through the final flooring surface. So you're heating the slab, which is what you're walking on. Whenever you're talking about putting anything over the top of the floor when it comes to basements or bathrooms or anywhere in the house, it's very important to think about what the flooring uh, specs are, because the flooring that you're installing is going to tell you what the maximum temperature is. So you need to watch out for that. So that's very, very important. It's also going to tell you what the R value is. So you don't want something with a high R value on top of this heating cable because it's going to trap all the heat down in the slab. So if you're going to, you can do this. So a lot of people, back in the old days, they did it with hot water.
Right.
And back in the old days, so we've had to move people to a different way of thinking with our above slab products, but with in slab products, it's pretty much the same as hot water. You want to have a low R value carpet pad, and you want to have a low R value carpet. Now, if you were doing this on top of the slab afterwards, I know that we may talk about this a little bit later, but when you're doing it on top of the slab, this is where you'd want a high R value pad
Mhm.
and a low R value carpet, and that will make the heat go up. So with slab, you want both R values to be very low to let it out. But if you're on top of the slab, you want a high R value on the slab, the heating cable, and then that product, the low R value to go above it. So that's kind of what we're thinking about here. So always watch your R value.
Very
We
true.
have three questions right now by the same person. And the first question is, my basement flooring is completed. Is it possible to have the existing floor wood laminate as the subfloor moisture barrier and install the heating mats on top of the floor? Well, first of all, we're not going to tell you what's allowed as a subfloor or a vapor barrier because the manufacturer of your new wood flooring is going to tell you that, not us. So odds are that a subfloor of laminate is not going to be a moisture barrier. The new company that you're doing will tell you what's advisable or not. But what you can also do is if you want to try to save some money, is you can just lift up all that laminate that you put down thermal sheet on top of your slab, lay our Environ product on that, and then float the same flooring that you already bought on top of that to save you some cost of flooring. So hopefully that answers your question there. My bathroom has three thermostats. That's good. That's good news. And then finally, a walk-in closet, toilet, and bathroom. I find that I have to keep the walk-in closet 2 degrees Celsius higher to have a temperature compatible with the rest of the and suite. Okay, so this is from north of the border. So I'm two, okay, so it's only 2 degrees centigrade. I don't, or Celsius. Sorry, I'm showing how old I am by saying centigrade there. Sorry about that. Walk-in closet, and I'm glad this is in Canada because a walk-in heat in a walk-in closet is not allowed in the US. So that's something to keep in mind. In Canada, you can have heat in the walk-in closet as long as there is a control there. Toilet and bathroom. Yeah, you have three different spaces there. That's why you're going to have different temperatures. So one has more heat loss than the other. So no, that doesn't surprise me because each room is different and each room is going to have different results. So one room may need 1 or 2 degrees higher, the other room may need 1 or 2 degrees lower. But that what you're telling me is not surprising. But those are all great questions.
Okay. All right, so moving on a little bit here is what we are showing you now is a bit about our actual thermal sheets. Um, the thermal sheet is a 2 foot by 3 foot sheet. It is applied with a thin set to your existing slab. You're going to set these like big sheets of tile, um, and then press them down before you put on your floor heating over the top of these. If you're
But
doing
if you make sure you make the difference here between tile as opposed to a floating floor, because it's a big difference.
Right. If you're doing tile, you're going to definitely want to use a primer. I'm sorry, if you're doing a tile or if you are doing laminate or something else over the top and you're going to embed the heating system, you will use a primer first over the top of this, right?
And you'll also attach if you're doing a tile floor, you need to attach this thermal sheet to the concrete below it using thin set.
Hmm.
You need to attach it to the subfloor. If you're doing a floating installation later on, then it just lays out all floating. So the thermal sheet will float and so will your final flooring. And the environment will be in between it.
Yeah, so you could do a total floating system if it's all floating, but if you're doing anything that's going to be tile, or if you are going to be pouring out leveling cement, the thermal sheets definitely need to be adhered well to your existing slab with modified thin set.
And when we're talking about floating floors, we're not talking about floating LVT floors.
Right.
It's not the same thing. LVT needs to be done in a different way. So we got questions from Pedro. Pedro's got a couple of questions here. And these are installed in the basement for climate control. What we would do is we would do a heat loss calculation on every space in that basement. So you could do that online on our website at warmlyyours.com. You can go to our heat loss calculation and do that for each individual space of the basement. Once again, if you have a basement that's 700 square feet and it's got 3 or 4 different rooms, you're not going to do 700 square feet in the heat loss calculation. You're going to do a heat loss calculation for each room that there's going to be heat in separately. And that would be your heat loss calculation that you would take, and you would find out how many BTUs you need. You would find out then if our product supplies enough BTUs to act as a sole source of heat. So whenever someone is interested in the sole source, primary source of heat, we always tell them to do the heat loss calculation, and that will tell them if the BTUs that we make, our product makes in the floor, is enough to overcome the thermal or the heat loss of that space. So that is your answer for that, Pedro. Great question.
Very good. Okay. Okay, and then here are we talking about the over the slab product recommendations once again. Key factors here is going to be the complexity of the layout for your final floor plan. Will also help us dictate a little bit of which product you go with. Budget may have something to do with it too. The cable system on the spool is going to be a little less expensive than the temp zone mat style system. However, the cable is going to be a little bit more labor intensive because you do have to string it back and forth yourself. Um, the other difference too is the spacing of the cable. You can go with a little bit wider spacing or tighter spacing. However, in basements, when you're going over slab, we like to probably recommend you stick with a 3 inch spacing most of the time.
And that's what comes standard on the temp zone mat. It's pre-spaced for you, so you don't have to think about it. Now, Mary, it's very important. We have to get this through because we get this question every single day. I'm just going to buy a big spool and I'm going to use as much as I need, then I'm going to cut it off and I'll be good, right? The answer to that is no. That is not correct. You have to get the correct size product to fit into that space. And that's why we make such a big deal about the installation plans, because the installation plans will show you exactly how it goes in. You don't, the number one mistake I see new people that have never done this before is they're trying to figure it out themselves. And
Hmm.
we have engineers that do dozens and dozens of these plans every day. We've been doing it for 25 years. Let us get you over the hump instead of, well, if I put a mat over there, how many amps is that? If I put one over there, how many amps, how many square foot? Just give us a sketch of the space and we'll figure it all out for you. And then if you want to change it, then we can do that. You sit with your sales rep, Mary, right? And go over
Absolutely.
that stuff.
Absolutely. Yes. We're happy to help walk you through that. And the last image here is the one on the right. This is the Environ foil mat. This is the one that we were talking about again for floating floors. This one works great when you're doing a basement with carpet. Again, it's where we get that high R value carpet padding down first, then the Environ foil mat over the top of that padding. You can do a carpet over that. Um, this is also good if you have an approved engineered wood flooring choice that you can click and lock over that. You do still need an underlayment with this, so you
With
cannot put
all
this
of them.
directly,
You need it
yes,
with
with all
all
of
of
them
them.
when
Yep.
you're on slab, right?
Mhm.
The environment especially, you do need to get that off the slab. You can use the thermal sheets that we offer. There are some other underlayments that may be compatible as well.
Yeah, so very, very important to keep that in mind. Once again, floor heating is not allowed by the Canadian electrical code. However, if you're in Canada, your local code may say it's okay. So we've seen it go both ways. So if you're thinking about doing carpet in Canada, please check with your code official first.
Very good point, Scott. Thank you. Okay, and here we show our newest product line for our floor heating systems is our Pro Ruler cable. This is a really unique cable system. It's got a high visibility yellow jacket, as you can see there. We put the unique markings, sort of like a tape measure. It's marked every 1 foot increments. So if you are going along on your plan and you kind of got off track somehow, you can easily see on the actual spool of cable how many more feet you got left and how do I gotta, figure this out before I get too far along. As Scott mentioned, you cannot cut or trim the cable, so we do have to make sure it's all going to fit in the space as intended. Um, it also has superior durability. We can do 15 watts per square foot again. Um, and these are all really great products for the Pro exclusive product here is for contractors only. So you get your contractor pricing with this one as well.
So one of the pictures we're showing here, the one on the right side, shows the Prodeso underlayment membrane.
Mhm.
That don't think of that as something that you're going to put over concrete and have it act as a thermal barrier because it won't. It has no R value. So it's going to be pretty much, it's like attaching the cable directly to a slab. So this product is just shown you for illustrative purposes. If you're doing heat over a slab, you would not use this type of product. Now, I know some other companies, that's the only way you can put their product in, so you don't really have a choice. But with us, you don't need that extra expense, and we don't even recommend it on a concrete slab to begin with because it has no R value. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Mhm. Okay, and here's our wonderful, lovely collection of our Inspire series thermostats. On the far left here, you have our newest model, which is the Enjoy Wi-Fi LED Touch Programmable Thermostat. Really nice design, very minimalist, doesn't stick off the wall very far or anything. It does pair with your home automation stuff and Alexas and home Googles and Wi-Fi compatibility. Um, it does have the illumination right on the face of the unit, so you can walk up to it to tap it to get the temperature to illuminate, and then you can use the arrows to dial it up or down. You will download an app that is unique to this unit, and you will program it through the app on your smart devices. The next unit we feature is our Inspire Touch programmable thermostat. This is a unit that's going to stand on the wall by itself. It has a nice light up display on the unit with a touch display. You can, again, walk up to the unit. You can do the programming for multiple times a day, different events. You can have weekend and weekday settings. Again, walk up to the unit to get it to light up and up or down the arrows.
Yeah, and set it up. You can set up your schedule and everything just by touching the touch screen. So you don't need an app to download or anything. You walk up, you touch it, hit program, set your days, times you want it on, times you don't want it on, and set it up that way direct.
Yeah, nice user-friendly option there.
Mhm.
The next one's a little bit more of a budget-friendly option. This is our N Trust 2.0 non-programmable thermostat. Kind of what you see there is what you get. It's got that nice, really sleek looking design. It's just a white face. If it's when you walk up to it, you tap it. It's just going to illuminate as you see there with the temperature, and then you have the arrows to go up or down. This is a great choice if you're just doing your basement bathroom or your smaller rooms that you really don't need so much controllability over it. You're just going to be that person who's going to set it and forget it. You're going to turn it on when it's cold and let it run. That's just a really great
Or,
option.
or one thing, Mary, when you're buying your flooring, you're going to have to ask, what's the maximum temperature that can be heated? Because tile doesn't have a rule. There, we don't ever worry about tile. Tile is the best product to get heat into a space because it translates the most heat. You can turn the heating wire up as high as you want to get heat into that space. Now, other products like LVT, laminate, engineered wood, carpet, they all say, not all of them, but the ones that allow it will say, yes, you can do floor heating.
Mhm.
If you do floor heating, you can't go over a certain temperature. So we have floor sensors that come with all of our products. There's even one that comes in each box that you'll see here. They also come attached to each roll or each cable that you buy will come with one attached. And you install both of them to have a redundant thermostat sensor. You only attach one to the thermostat, but you install them both. Leave one balled up in the back of the thermostat, attach one. What you're also going to ask the company that makes your flooring is, can I do setback temperatures? Which means if I'm in this room in the morning, can I set it for 84? And then when I leave, can I set it down to 68? That's called a setback. Some companies, especially hardwoods and also some engineered wood, and a lot of these flooring will say you can go up to an 82 temperature, but you can only deviate 1 or 2 degrees per day. That means you're eliminating setbacks. If you're eliminating setbacks, you do not want a programmable thermostat of any kind. You want the non-programmable because you're going to set it up a couple degrees every day. So if you're starting from cold, from scratch, you go from 60 to 62, then 62 to 64 the next day, up 2 degrees the next day, and continue on until you get to the temperature you want. That may take a week to get up to that temperature. And then what this will do is it will keep it at that temperature
Mhm.
until you change it. Then at the end of the heating season, what you do is you go from 84 to 82. The next day, you go from 82 to 80,
Right.
and you work your way down the same way. So if you're not allowed to do any setback temperatures, you do not want a programmable thermostat. So keep that in mind. What's the maximum temperature that your flooring allows? And do you allow setbacks? And if you don't, the non-programmable thermostat is the one you want.
Good point, Scott. Thank you for pointing that out. Um, the last unit that you see there is not everybody's going to use this unit, but if you do have a very large basement, something over about 220 square feet or so, and you do want to use this big open basement rec room area as one big zone, it may exceed 15 amps load, which is the most we can do on about a 210 square foot area. When you get past that, that's when you're going to need the next second circuit. And then what you do is you pair this end join unit with one of our other units, and together those two units will simultaneously turn the floor on together.
Yeah,
Um,
so I want to bust a myth right now. Not going to bust a move because you don't want to see that, but I'm going to bust a myth. 240 volt does not heat any hotter or any faster than 120 volt. So we talk to people, and Mary, I know you do. You get this every single day. Well, that's going to be 240, right? 220, 240? No. In a room that's only like a bathroom that's 50 square feet, there's no reason for 240 because it doesn't do anything for you that 120 does. The only thing it does is it takes up an extra space in your breaker panel. So you don't want that. But in larger spaces, because these thermostats handle 15 amps. So that means 15 amps at 120 equals, coincidentally, about 120 square feet. So if you're doing something under 120 square feet, you're going to use any of these thermostats with a 120 volt circuit. Now, these are dual voltage. So now if I have a room that's 150 square feet, I can still use one control, but what I do is I go to 240 volts, and that lets me double the size using the same amount of amps. So I can switch 15 amps in 120 for 120 square foot, or I can switch 15 amps in 240, which is about 240 square feet. That's how we size our most of our jobs. Now, if you get into, just like Mary said, if you get to 300 square feet, you're going to be using one thermostat to control the first 15 amps, and you're going to use the power module to control the next 15 amps. And then the next 15 amps is another power module, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully we busted a myth there. 240 is not better than 120. It takes up an extra breaker spot. It only allows you to double the size that you heat if you use 240.
Correct. Okay, so some of our key takeaways from today and implementing the best practices to ensure that you have the best radiant heated floor for your basement project and have the most comfort and long-term satisfaction is really product match. So let us help guide you to the right product for your application. Tell us what your flooring desires are, and we can direct you to which flooring product is going to pair best for your application.
We're making a sandwich, right? You tell us what the bottom layer is, you tell us what the top layer is, and we'll tell you what goes in the middle.
Yeah, it's sort of like, the order of how you make a burger. You got to get
Mhm.
all the layers just right so your burger doesn't fall apart.
Right.
Um, minimize minimize the system component. So this is really pretty important, guys, because well, you can do, one mat here and one mat there if you're doing spot heating in a very large basement, and have separate components because they're far from each other. A lot of times it makes sense to do it in a single continuous piece of material. We can help you figure that out exactly how you do it. You don't want to buy 10 small pieces of material because they do not plug into each other. You will have a nightmare trying to get all of those lead wires up to a single power location. The leads are between 12 and 15 feet long, so they don't reach everywhere. And when you're talking big, large basement spaces, you've got to plan ahead for that. So really using the least amount of mats or cables to heat your space efficiently is something that we're definitely going to encourage you to do. So,
If you're finding that your job takes 3 mats, you need to reevaluate what you're doing, because most spaces you can heat with one. A lot of spaces you might use two. So,
mhm.
I mean, I had a fellow this last summer who bought 6 easy mats, small mats. So he just stuck them all next to each other in his floor. Now he's got 7 leads that he has to go, how do I get these all attached to the thermostat? Well, the thing is, you're not going to get all 7 attached to the thermostat. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to run all 7 to a junction box below the thermostat, run all them together, tie all the yellows together, all the blacks together, and then run a cable from that junction box up to the thermostat. It turned out to be a real mess. And the reason why it happened that way is because they tried to figure it out themselves. They said, I
Mhm.
need to heat this many spaces. Here's 6 square feet. I need 6 of those, and then I can do 36 square feet. That's not how you want to do 36 square feet. You want to buy one roll that has one connection or one cable that has one connection. That's what we mean by minimizing system components. You will thank yourself in the end. And if you're starting, there's your first job ever, please get us a drawing and we'll figure it out for you.
Right, right, absolutely. And this goes back again, I think we've said it several times in this presentation today, the thermostat limitations. We're talking about that, one thermostat per zone. If you've got, a bedroom, a play area, and a bar area, you may want to split those up from the bathroom. You're not going to want the bathroom the same temperature as you are entertaining at the bar. So planning for the right amount of zones for your thermostats, planning early, getting the power run to the thermostat placements while the walls are before the walls get finished is very important. So planning your thermostat limitations, knowing how many square foot you're heating goes back to, are we planning for 120 or 240?
And that leads to the next point is that the first thing you want to do if you're interested in getting floor heating is to go to your breaker box and see if you have any open slots. Because
Mhm.
if you don't have any open slots, you're going to have an issue trying to get floor heating into that space because we recommend that the thermostat be on its own dedicated line, its own dedicated breaker. And if you don't have any breaker space in your breaker panel, you're going to be fighting a battle there trying to get floor heat into that. And while we're talking about thermostats, Patrick has a quick question is, can we use a smart thermostat on an existing heat floor mat? As long as that floor heating mat is a line voltage being 120 or 240 and not low voltage, which would be like 24 or 5 or whatever that is. Yes, you would just take the old thermostat out of the wall, put the new thermostat attachments together, and then put it in, and that would be a simple upgrade for you. So the answer to that is yes, if you have
Mhm.
line voltage system installed.
Awesome. Oh, and then lastly here, again, leverage the smart plan process. Use our professional design uh, services that we offer. We can calculate exactly what you need to ensure that you're not going to make those costly mistakes. It'll cost you more in your own time in and possibly multiple trips for electricians if it's done wrong. So we really want you to have a smooth and successful installation. So please do take the time to do that smart plan with us. And our critical do's for basement installation. Pre-installation, you want to check that code and that building pour for that slab compliance. If we're above the slab, we want to make sure that we have a nice level slab to start with. If we are above the slab, we're going to do the thermal sheet, thermal break insulation. Um, you're going to test everything with a digital multimeter. That's a pretty important tool. This is something that every installer needs to have. It's not an optional tool. You have to have one. Um,
And the good thing is they're only about 20 bucks. So there's no reason not to have one, but you're
yeah,
going to need it.
yeah, definitely get yourself a tool so you can test your heating system, make sure it's working properly. You're going to verify those smart plan dimensions prior to ordering, and then you're going to make sure that nothing has changed on the job site, and then follow the plan as it's shown on your smart plan installation design. During your installation, we encourage you to do a before, during, and after test of resistance to make sure that your heating mat or cable is not compromised in any way, shape, or form. Yes,
With your
Scott.
ohm meter, with
With
your
your
ohm
own.
meter.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you a little hint about ohm meters. The more expensive the ohm meter is, the more difficult it is to use. So you don't want to spend $300 or $400 on an ohm meter. You want to buy an inexpensive one that has a dial on the front that lets you manually set the range so you can test the floor. We talk to people every week, dozens of them, who go out and buy a $400 meter. It's a self-ranging meter, which are the worst ones to use. And now we have to go work with them, press range, press range, press range, press range. And just it turns it
Mhm.
to a fight as opposed to turn it to the 200 range, do your test. You're done in 2 seconds as opposed to hit range, so take a bit of advice. The less expensive the ohm meter, digital voltmeter, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, simpler is better in this case. We do encourage a circuit check for every mat or cable. Again, if you're in big basements, big spaces, you're going to notice on your quotation that we're going to give you one circuit check per mat or cable. This is not negotiable. You can't use one circuit check for 5 mats or cables if you're going to be installing these at the same time. You need one circuit checker per mat or cable. Yes, Scott.
Yeah, people will argue with you and say, I'm only going to use one and I'm going to hook three up to it. Well, the problem is if you've got two people or three people working on these three that are hooked together and all of a sudden the alarm goes off, you don't know which one it went off for. That's
Correct.
the main important thing is if you do one per setup. And that way, if all of a sudden the one in this room goes off, you know it's the heating cable in that room, not possibly the hallway or the other room. That's why we make such a big deal about that.
Absolutely. Um, Another thing you want to make sure you're going to have on hand during your installation is a good roll of masking tape. Um, or an actually I
Or
don't
hot glue.
hot glue gun. I
Or
would say I don't
yeah,
see hot
yep.
glue gun on there, but we do definitely want you to have a hot glue gun. It is most important, especially if you're doing a pour up leveling cement, that you tack those mat or cables down that they don't float up to the top of the pour. So very
Because
important.
they
Yes,
will.
they will. So definitely, when you don't think it's enough, keep going. It's not enough. More tacking it down.
And always, if you're using the mats, the rolls, always cable side down.
Mhm,
Cable side down as much as you can because the ends that have the loops on them are not attached to the mesh. So if you put it with the cable facing upward and you pour self-leveling over it, all of a sudden the loops do this. And now
mhm,
you have loops sticking out the top of your flooring. So what we always say is when you're doing an area, get it level first. Then once you get it level, then start making the layers that we need. But you need to get the floor level first correctly. So that's very, very important. And when you're putting this cable in, don't forget to put the sensor in. You've got a sensor that comes attached to each roller cable. You also have a sensor that always gets forgotten that's in the thermostat box.
mhm.
Take that one out, give it to the installer and say, install both of these. Put them in a spot that doesn't get hit by sunshine. You usually don't have to worry about that in a basement. But today we're dealing with someone who put in a really nice floor and then they put their floor sensor in the floor. But then later on they decided, I'm going to put an area rug over there. Well, as soon as you put an area rug over your sensor, your floor is not going to heat up. So you have to think about these things. Put the sensor where there's not going to be an area rug, where there's not going to be in sunshine hitting it, but it doesn't need to run. Another thing that we see all the time is people running the sensor out into the middle of the room. You don't need to run it out into the middle of the room. Just you need to go in 6 inches into an open loop so it doesn't run over a heating wire. That's all the further you have to go. You don't need to run it out into the center. And when you install both of them, which we mentioned it before, only hook one of the thermostats up. I mean, only hook one of the
That's
sensors up to the thermostat. Leave the other one balled up in the back of the box.
That's just in case you need to use it at any point. You don't have to disturb the existing floor.
We got a question from Pedro. Can we run two thermostats in the same conduit? Well, first of all, I'm hoping you're running separate circuits. Oh, two sensors. Yes, the sensor can go in the conduit. You can run 30 sensors in the same conduit, but you can't run a sensor in the same conduit as the cold leads. You can never mix and match low voltage wiring with high voltage wiring in one conduit. So yes, you can put both conduits in, both sensors in the same conduit up to the thermostat. Just make sure that it's isolated from the cold lead that runs from the thermostat down to the floor. So hopefully that answered your question, Pedro. That's a great question. And we talk to people all the time who run their sensor in the same conduit as their high voltage leads, and now they don't get any reading at all.
Oh, yes, that will cause a problem. Okay, and proper cable spacing, I think we kind of mentioned that. That was, in a basement, if you're using the fixing strips, we're pretty much going to encourage you to go with a 3-inch spacing most of the time on that. Okay, post installation. This is probably pretty important, especially if you're doing any kind of pouring of concrete. So if it's a new pour of concrete or for the I'm sorry, a new pour foundation, you're going to test that moisture before you put any flooring over it. And if you do a self-leveling, if we're going over the slab style system, you're going to test that newly poured self-leveling layer that you just did before putting on your flooring choice. Um,
Another question that we get is the first question. How long does it take for the product to cure?
mm,
We don't know the answer to that. The answer to that is on the bag of the mix that you bought.
mhm.
So if you bought that from brand X, you're going to look on their bag, and that bag is going to say fully cured in 7 days or fully cured in 28 days. It'll be on the bag that you purchase.
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely. So follow the cure time for the recommendations on the product, and then do a moisture test as well. We want you to do a final resistance test with that newly purchased $20 ohm meter.
Write that number down in your installation manual and on your warranty card. That's
Yes,
your record of a successful installation.
yes, keep hold of that. You're going to then program your thermostats. If you need help with that, we have a ton of awesome videos. You can check our website to walk yourselves through some video programming tutorials. Um, and then commissioning the system following the temperature requirements per the flooring manufacturer.
Great.
Um, that's it on that one. Okay, Scott, let's look at some real examples here. Show us one that we had a good installation on.
This is the one that I did. A lakefront walkout basement in Killdeer, high humidity, persistent musty smells, recurring ruined flooring, and what is something I don't see a lot was actually the floor air vents. The air vents were in the floor. You
Hmm.
don't see that in basements very often, and part of the problem was that they were there because water would come up through the air vents.
Oh
So
no.
the it would leak into the air vents. It would, leak the whole basement. It'd take forever to dry it out, and then it would come up through the floor. So that lower level was quite treacherous at points. So what we did is we installed temp zone electric floor heating under this tile, which is a really cool looking tile. And we can get some pictures here. Mary, you can see the screen,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yes, we can.
So there's the finished project. Here's what the plan looked like. And here we can see we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cables in this area here. We had one thermostat and 1, 2, 3, 4 power modules because it was our old Honeywell system. This would have been one thermostat and 3 power modules with a new OJ system. We
Mhm.
tell you how many breakers. We tell you what the spacing is. You can see that's all here on the plan. It tells you how many amps it draws, how many watts. It tells us which cable, number one is here, number two and three go here. So it tells you where they all hook up. So
Very
this
good.
is what the smart plan looks like. And this is a great example of how this was planned. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. And here's the finished work. And you can see,
Mhm.
I would talk to them about their speaker choice there. They could, I think, might have been to make a better choice for that. But we can continue to look at how nice this project ended up. This was pretty much unusable space. And you can see here, we talked about the masking tape. The masking tape is to hold the cable down. So it
Mhm.
didn't float in the self-leveling. So that's me putting the tape down. There's our thermal sheet underneath, which has been attached to the subfloor, and we did cable and cable strips all the way across using the tape to hold it down. And you can see us putting that cable in the fixing strips at 1, 2, 3, 4 inch spacing as specified on the plan, 1, 2, 3, 4 inch spacing. So that's how you figure your spacing, and getting that tape down on the floor and putting the fixing strips around the perimeter. So that was a very interesting job. And here we can see the prices. Go ahead and talk to quickly about the prices, then we'll move on to the next one.
Okay, so here we have real quickly just the I don't know if that's the right pricing for this one, Scott. That says Environ there. This is cable on that.
Oh yeah, this one is,
That is
oh
mismatched.
no, no, we did Environ in the home theater room.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's the
so
different
yeah,
part of the project.
it's a different part of the project that is on the plan.
Okay, so let's go with the
So the circuit checks were 10 circuit checks because there
yeah.
were multiple mats in the theater room. So the Environ was in the home theater room.
Yes, I think the Environ was in the home theater room, and I don't see the yeah, that's
Yeah,
not the right list.
yeah. So that's not the right list, but I think this is actually the list for the home theater room instead of the big room.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get out of there. We'll go to the next one. And we will go to this one here is another one that I did, a Fox River Grove basement. And this is the one I talked about at the very beginning where we put the natural cork down. And we'll talk about the problems with natural cork, but we put a natural cork floor down one day. Then we came back the next morning and the homeowner went down in the basement. She goes, "This room has never felt this warm ever." And that was simply by just insulating the cold slab from the remainder of the heated area in the house. So it was instantly noticeable. So when we talk about, we used to sell cork all the time, and cork did its purpose, but it's a natural product. So it will harbor mold. Mold will grow from it. It'll eat it. Thermal sheet is not organic, so there's nothing for the mold to eat. So you don't have to
Mhm.
worry about that. Also, people would go, well, I'm going to go out and buy my own cork. I'm going to go buy a big roll of it at Home Depot. Well, what they were doing is they were buying cork that was designed for bulletin boards. So
Oh
if you
no.
if you've ever been in a schoolroom with a bulletin board, that's a different kind of cork. It's not as dense, it's bouncier, and it's not a flooring underlayment. This cork is special because it's compressed much tighter and it's more resilient, and it is listed as a floor subfloor. So the one thing that we really got us away from this is when people were using self-leveling. Because if you pour self-leveling over this product, the natural cork will expand, it'll pull itself off the floor. And Mary, you can remember
Mhm.
we went through one of these. Um, uh, it was a
Yeah.
problem, right? It was a
Yeah,
problem.
it was a crusty mess. They
Yeah.
pulled up all the cork and all the heat mat all at once, and it was just it all had to be replaced.
So let's take a quick look at this one, what we did with cork. And we did it, you can see that we did our cuts, did our measurements.
Going
Uh,
around that basement beam
yep.
right there.
Which you need to make sure if you have one of these, if you have a basement of any size, you're going to have one of these beams and you need to show it on your plan. Then we adhered it to the subfloor with a roller. Then we put the heating mat under it, cut into this is very important, we cut into the cork to allow that thicker splice to have room to be recessed so the tile didn't teeter-totter over the top of it. And there's our hot glue holding it in place. Here's us putting into place cable side down. My hair was much darker back then. How does that happen? And now here's the plan that we use. We use 3 foot wide product in a lot of places, and we use the 1.5 foot wide product in other places. So that's what this installation looks like. So we'll go ahead and get out of here. Let's take a look
Mhm.
at this one.
Yes, this has the power module with the master thermostat control. We have three circuit chucks because I think we had three rolls going in this room. And then we had the temp zone heating mats with that as well.
Yeah, so that was a good installation. A very successful. That homeowner loved the results. It was like night and day. They could go down there anytime that they wanted to because it was always really comfortable. So, first time installer mastered a large scale laminate floor. So let's take a really quick, I know we have to keep moving along here, but let's take a really quick look at this space. This was done with our Environ over the
Mhm.
top of thermal sheet. Thermal sheet is 6 millimeters thick. That 6 millimeters buys you the height that you need to get the non-heating leads back to the wall. If you don't use that, your product's gonna teeter-totter over your leads. That's why you don't use the real thin blue stuff. The real thin blue stuff doesn't do anything for you. You need to have, because Environ needs to have a soft surface on one side.
Mhm.
So let's take a quick look at some of the pictures. There's only a few here to go, but you can see we have
Big room,
supports.
big supports we had to go around.
Yep. And here's the product laid out from wall to
Mhm.
wall. And once again, here's the product. We have the thermal sheet, we
Mhm.
have the heating product, and we have the final flooring all in this picture.
Very good picture.
And you can see that's a big room.
Yes, big room.
Yeah,
And they had a very much plan ahead for that. I think I remember this project. They had a plan ahead for those power modules because if you notice, they're on like opposite sides. We have to get a communication wire between all of those units. So it's always best to plan far in advance. Don't think that you can plug these just because you have an outlet there that, oh, I can run power from that outlet to the heating mat. That's not how it goes. It needs that dedicated home run line.
exactly. So those are three great examples. So let's talk about the price, Mary, and this is where you are the boss.
Yeah, so everyone has this idea that radiant heat is just so luxury and so unaffordable. I can't afford it, but really, it is affordable. It is something that most people can budget for and get into their spaces. Um, as far as how expensive it is to operate the system, we're talking pennies a day. For the comfort you're going to have, you're not even going to mind paying those pennies per day. Uh, we have a on our website as well. We have a operating cost calculator. So if you want to tell us about how many hours a day you plan on using the system, we take your postal or zip code into effect, an approximate rate per kilowatt hour that you pay. We will help you to figure out how much the system is going to cost you to operate. If that is something that is important to you, we can help you determine that. And it really is going to be more affordable than you can really imagine.
Here's a pro tip. If you put it in the basement, and your basement's only going to be used 3 weeks a year, you turn it off for the other 49 weeks. So it's going to save you even more money if you do that. So that's the
Mhm.
one great thing about this zonability of electric floor heating.
Right, right. You really have the ability to regulate it yourselves. So to get started today, again, we want you to send us in that sketch or drawing with those dimensions. Let us help you figure out what size system you need and what products you need for your system. If you are handy online and like to use our interactive tools, we do have an online design tool that can help you figure out what you might need yourselves. Um, you can go back to our project showcase online, as Scott was just showing you. There's some really good examples. Deep dive into that if you want, guys. There's tons of other good examples and videos where you can see more of Scott's wonderful work and his installations. Um, use your account managers here. Warmly Yours is the best for when it comes to having a consultant to turn to. When you run into trouble or you have these little questions, even if they're small questions, we're here to answer them. So please reach out to your sales rep or tech support rep for any of those difficult challenges. We even have online instant chat message. We take text messages, so we are very reachable. Um, Technical documentation, our quotation is going to have a lot of the technical documentation that you need right off the bat. But should you need additional support documentation, if you need to put a submittal together for your general contractors or
Watch,
other entities that need approval, we
watch the videos.
yes, the videos. We have
Watch the videos. They're very, very important. We have a bunch of them.
tons of good videos, tons of really good technical videos, everything from how to install something as simple as a sensor wire, how to open a thermostat, testing. It's all at your fingertips. And if you're not able to find what you need, please again reach out to us and we will be happy to drop you a link. Ongoing learning, these webinars, thank you so much for joining with us today. We encourage you to stick with us to continue learning, to help you grow your own businesses and to help you have successful installations.
So yeah,
And
you can do Q&A. We do these every week, except right on the holiday weeks and that sort of stuff. So I think we'll be starting these up very soon again. These are ones that I do. Also, another person in tech support does, and then one of our other sales reps do these. So this is questions that we get asked all the time.
Mhm. And I hope you are able to join us on our next upcoming webinar. We're going to take a little break for the holidays, but we'll be back in January with our next Ask Us Anything floor heating installations, your toughest challenges answered live. Um, so our professionals are going to be here for 1 p.m. on Thursday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And we will be back after the new year.
And then Olivia, Olivia has, we had a couple questions, and Olivia is always slaving away in the background, doing all the real hard work. And are these the questions, Olivia, or did we not get those? So Mary, can you?
Okay. Those questions there. Okay. We had, I purchased the underlayment offered for the heated floor package last year,
Okay.
and the project was delayed until this year. Will anything happen to the underlayment exposed to the hot cold cycles for the past year, or is it just as durable as new?
And the question of that is, there is no shelf life specified by
Yeah.
ThermalSheet. So if you keep it in a cool, dry place,
Hmm.
then it will definitely be okay. If you keep it in a dry place and the temperature goes up and down, it's pretty much an inert product anyway. So I don't think you're going to have any trouble with putting this. Now, if it were laying out in the sun outdoors, then I would say you might have an issue. You probably want to get a replacement. But with this stuff stored inside, whether it's hot or cold, is going to be just fine.
Okay. And our second question here says some LVT manufacturer product is fairly thick, appears difficult to bend, and is comparable to a laminate flooring. Can these be used over environ mats? Um, Well, I think again the answer with that is going to be in the LVT manufacturer's warranty. What do they specify? Some will say, they need that half inch of separation, which is going to mean you're going to need to use the self-leveling style heating system. If they do not specify and they just say like follow your radiant heat manufacturer's recommendations for temperature, we can look into it with you. But if you have a question, feel free to give us a call with the brand name. We'll help you research that a little bit.
I
Uh,
can be honest with you, because it ends up in tech support,
yeah.
this question, and 99 times out of 100, it's a no. The best way to install LVT is to put down temp zone, covering it with a layer of self-leveling, because that helps you comply with two requirements. The distance from the heat that you mentioned, Mary, usually
Hmm.
it's a half an inch. And the second is the flatness requirement, because Environ has the wires exposed and it's not flat. So I can almost guarantee you that it's not going to be, whether it says that or not. And LVT also has another, because it's vinyl, whether it's got stone dust in it or whatever, it still has vinyl in it. And vinyl drapes. Vinyl conforms to whatever's under it. So you may not see it for the first year or so, but if you walk into an old house where they put LVT over the top of an old corrugated floor of some sort, you'll start to
You'll
see it.
see.
And that's
Absolutely.
that's called drape. It conforms, it eventually over time it conforms to what's under it.
Yeah, absolutely. How close to a wood burning stove can the heated floor underlayment be installed? Hmm.
Well, keep in mind that the heated floor underlayment, so the thermal sheet is it's in contact with 80, 90, 100-degree cable all the time. So it once again, it's never going to be exposed directly to the fire because it's going to be under the tile, right? So I don't think you have anything to worry about that.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Great question though.
Hmm.
Oh,
Okay. Ooh, there we are.
yeah, I know. Yikes.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining us today on our webinar for this time around. And if you do have any questions, you will always be able to find us at warmlyyours.com or at our toll-free number. Feel free to drop us a call or shoot us an email.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Take care.